Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Russ Riesinger.
And I'm Jeanelle Slade. Well, if you plan to speak out for or against the proposed non-discrimination ordinance in Billings, be ready with 3 sets of speaking points.
Billings Mayor Bill Cole says he's aiming for efficiency in public comment next Monday night ahead of the council's vote whether to move forward or not in March.
Well, last time a NDAO came before the council in 2014, public comment lasted into the early hours of the next day. Mayor Cole and other council members are hoping to move more quickly this time around.
Q2's Mitch Legge sat down with the mayor today to get a sense of how this discussion will happen. Mitch?
Well, Russ and Jeanelle, efficiency is key in Mayor Cole's mind heading into next Monday's meeting. He told me that people should be prepared to cut down their 3-minute comment to 2 or 1 minutes. Traditionally, a person is allowed 3 minutes per comment at a city council meeting, but the mayor has the authority to change the timing, duration, and date of public comment as long as it is given a reasonable opportunity to be heard. Cole said if there is abundant public interest after the council has heard from the public for about an hour, he would start dropping the comment length. As well, the NDO discussion will happen at the very end of the council meeting with an agenda that's already packed full. Cole said that people should be prepared to wait to speak if they come at the meeting's start.
We do have an obligation to hear from the public, but legally we don't have an obligation to hear from every single person in the public. And so I think after we've had a fair amount of time, especially given all of the input we've had already, that'll be sufficient. But it will be important to be very efficient in receiving and making comments.
And since we're still days away from that meeting, Cole said his plan is not set in stone. The vote on Monday will decide whether to put the NDO on the council's agenda for March 23rd. If it needs 6 yes votes to move forward. Councilmember Pam Purinton told me today that she will be voting no. She disagrees with the notion that Billings will see less growth without an NDO. She also believes that the issue should be left up to the state legislature and not city governments. Today, Purinton told me, quote, "At this point, my vote against an NDO is a vote having faith in the community of Billings to be that welcoming, diverse community that we say we are." We also asked Mayor Cole how he will vote if asked to split the tie vote again, like Tom Hannell in 2014. He declined to answer, but he has been on the record opposing the previous NDO. Russ and Jeanelle?
All right, thanks so much, Mitch.
Well, a 14-year-old West Yellowstone boy will be charged as an adult with deliberate homicide and what prosecutors say was the systematic torture and brutalizing death of 12-year-old James Alexander Hurley.
It's a disturbing update that brings more gruesome details to the surface through a 22-page court document. And again, the details can be considered hard to hear.
Here's MTN's Cody Boyer with more.
Be so cruel and so cold-hearted to especially your own grandson.
Court document after court document has revealed what Gallatin County prosecutors have called a horrific story. Systematic abuse to 12-year-old James Hurley at the hands of his grandparents, Patricia Batts and James Sasser Jr. According to court documents, Hurley was found dead on the living room floor of his West Yellowstone home after Batts called 911 with a different story, claiming the boy had been hearing voices, threatening his family and harming himself. But it's Hurley's uncle, 14-year-old James Sasser III, whose story unraveled. At first, court documents show Sasser told investigators that Hurley had run into an entertainment center, and on the night of January 27th, saw Hurley standing over Batts with a knife as she slept. But those same court documents show he admitted that he had made that part up. At that time, Sasser told detectives he tackled Hurley, punching him several times on his body and on his head. And detectives made another note. Hurley weighed only 103 pounds. Sasser III weighs 300 pounds, standing 6 feet tall. The documents go back to the videos, filmed by Batts and Sasser III. And on Sasser's own phone, another video captured Batts holding Hurley against the wall by his neck, strangling him. No other arrests have been made at this time, yet the investigation is not over. In Gallatin County, Cody Boyer, MTN News.
All right, thanks, Cody. Again, to make it clear, Sasser III is now charged as an adult for deliberate homicide.
Batts and Sasser Jr. are both charged with deliberate homicide by association, all 3 punishable by up to 100 years or life in prison. A
Billings police officer seriously injured on Saturday when a 14-year-old driver slammed into him outside his patrol car went home from the hospital this morning.
The Billings Police Department says Officer Jeremiah Adams underwent surgery to reconstruct his left leg, but is expected to return to full duty after 5 to 6 months of recovery. The 14-year-old driver who hit Officer Adams was arrested and is being held on a possible charge of attempted murder.
Adams' canine partner Susan was not injured in the crash and we're told will remain at the officer's side as he recovers.
The teenager responsible for a horrific deadly crash in the Heights back in the fall of 2018 is pleading no contest. This is video of that accident which left 20-year-old Haley Hudson-Byler dead at the scene and her passenger seriously hurt. Yesterday in Yellowstone District Court, Jacob Standing Elk, who's now 18 years old, pleaded no contest to mitigated deliberate homicide and assault with a weapon. Prosecutors say Standing Elk was suicidal and intoxicated prior to purposely crashing his car head-on into Hudson-Byler's at a speed of 123 miles per hour. Standing Elk faces a minimum of 2 years in prison. A sentencing date has not yet been set.
A Harden woman who helped 3 inmates escape from the Bighorn County Jail is now behind bars here in Billings after a shoplifting arrest at Walmart. 24-year-old Odessa Cottier is wanted in Bighorn County for allegedly calling the Harden jail on Friday, February 10th with a false report to lure deputies out of that facility. Inmates then allegedly assaulted the lone deputy on shift and escaped. Billings police say yesterday a Walmart employee saw Cottier remove tags from items in the store and tried to leave. When they tried to stop her, Cottier bolted for the door, but another employee finally stopped her. Inmates Stephen Caplet, Anthony Castro were arrested in Billings just days after they escaped, and Andrew Parham remains at large. Now, the alleged getaway driver in that jailbreak was arrested last week.
Well, Harden will soon have its own police force after the city council voted in favor of forming its own department.
The city council vote came out 5-1 last night to establish a municipal police department and a 3-person police commission. Now, the first year is expected to cost about $520,000. That amount is expected to pay for a police chief and 4 or 5 officers.
A 3-person commission, the mayor and a consultant will hire a police chief. The chief will then hire the officers who will work in Harden with sheriff's deputies.
That'll help allow the county to be able to move that next step farther out into the county and kind of help as a buffer. So everyone's not coming to town. You're kind of keeping things at bay before they get to the city limits. So that's kind of part one. Part two, of course, is overall public safety. And then the third part, of course, would be having a better reputation, safer community to help promote some economic development.
Mayor Purcell expects to get the commission together and start looking for a chief within a month.
Well, Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire joining us now. Bob, some warmer temperatures out there, but it sure didn't start out that.
Yes, it
did. This morning was cold.
Did you try to start your car this morning? Oh, you didn't want to go. That was the truth. But let me tell you, let me show you how cold it was. Check this out. Here in Billings, we dipped to 2 degrees above zero, and we were one of the lucky ones. Take a look at Glasgow. They went to 7 below, 3 below at Glendive. Miles City was 6 below zero. Butte was 7 below. Same thing over at Cutbank. So basically, east of the divide, everybody's either above or below zero. Just a very cold morning. Now, here's the good news. The cold Arctic air is slowly starting to drain away, and so for tomorrow, we're looking for a high temperature getting up to 35 degrees. It'll be 43 on Friday, 48 on Saturday. That'll be nice. 45 on Sunday. Unfortunately, on Sunday night, we might see some scattered flurries move in, and so we'll start cooling back down, and by Tuesday, we're back to 32 degrees with a slight chance for snow. We'll have more about that coming up in a few more minutes.
All right, thanks, Bob. Well, a major shakeup in the Billings media landscape today. The Billings Gazette announces it will eliminate the editor and editorial page director positions as it restructures its newsroom operations. Gazette editor Daryl Ehrlich has been in the newsroom and has been the leader since 2013. He's been with Lee Enterprises since 2004. Pat Bellinghausen has spent 37 years at the Gazette in a variety of reporting and editing roles. She has been the opinion page editor since 2001. Gazette publisher Dave Worstel says, quote, as the newspaper business evolves, the Billings Gazette must also embrace changes.
The Billings Logan International Airport is among 17 airports in Montana poised to receive a total of $26.5 million in federal grant money. In Billings, grants will be used to reconfigure the existing runway and expand the terminal building. building. The Billings Airport will get 2 separate grants, one for $200,000 and another for $2.5 million. The terminal expansion has already started in Billings, with some of the airport restaurants being moved around. The total expansion project will cost roughly $50.5 million. It's expected to be completed in 2023. The federal grants are part of $520 million in airport infrastructure investments being made across the nation.
Well, there's more news from across our state on tonight's MTN 9 o'clock news. Training Day, as state employees take part in annual education to increase their knowledge and understanding of Montana tribes. Join Russ for that and more on tonight's statewide news on the CW.
But first, still to come on tonight's 5:30 news, 2 new candidates adding their names to Montana's U.S. Senate race. We'll tell you who they are.
And later in sports, see how this recent MSUB grad has already turned into a formidable coach.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 5:30 news on Q2, Montana's news leader.